our cattle. Now, gentlemen, welcome aboard. Mr. Massimo, happy to have you on board.
Thank you very much.
As well as Dr. Kauta.
Thanks a lot.
And of course, Dr. Chris.
Thank you.
Chris, when we talk about foot and mouth disease, it doesn't seem like a very, very interesting thing to talk about, foot and mouth disease. But from what you talked to us about just before we came on air, it's the problem that Uganda is facing. Take us through what FMD is all about and why you think it's a problem.
Yeah, thank you. Foot and mouth disease, it's a disease of animals. These animals with divided hooves. Of course, that includes cattle, sheep, goats, and of course, pigs, and some wildlife species like buffaloes, antelopes. So, foot and mouth disease, of course, it's a viral disease. It doesn't affect people, but the biggest problem with it is that it affects animals and the welfare of people. Most people are pastoralists in Uganda and most other countries in Africa. When this disease comes up, it impairs growth, it affects production of milk, body weight gain, and more important, the disease affects the market.
Yeah, but from the very basic, foot and mouth disease, is it as it sounds that it affects the feet and the mouth?
Very good. That's the exact thing. The disease attacks the feet. The animals get wounds along the horn of the hoof, and also in the mouth, and sometimes on the teats or the udder. Yeah.
So if I am a farmer, not very well versed with issues to do with animal diseases, what would be the easiest way to tell that this cow or this bull here is having a foot and mouth disease issue?
Okay, thank you. Foot and mouth disease affected animals normally develop fever, high fever. Because of the wounds in the mouth, they are not able to eat properly. So they actually, you find wounds in the mouth, and eventually the mouth becomes smelly. It can't walk. It walks with lameness. Because of fever, sometimes animals may die, especially if they are young. And there are wounds on the heart muscles. But the characteristic sign, just like they call it in Uganda, kalusu, you'll see saliva, thick saliva drooling in the mouth. Yeah.
Okay, great. Let me go to Dr. Kauta. Dr. Animal Resources, that's a huge responsibility that you have in this country as Director of Animal Resources. And talk to us a little more about foot and mouth disease. In Uganda, how big a problem is this?
Yeah, foot and mouth disease varies in magnitude from time to time. There is a time you stay with very few outbreaks. We have years when we have had about 4 to 8 outbreaks. Last year and this year, we have had extended outbreaks. Reaching this year 28 districts affected. Last year was about 32 districts. And that's a large proportion of the country.
30 districts is not a big area because we have 112 coming to 120 or 130. I've lost count now, so that's still a very small area. 32,
yes,
small beer.
You know, a country can have a population of 100 million, but when 5 people are affected, you can call it an epidemic, depending on how you decide on what an epidemic is. So for a disease to cover even 1/20th of a country, that's a big issue because it is not supposed to be there, considering that other countries in the world don't have it at all. Like the United States, most of Europe don't have it. Australia has many years, and New Zealand without it at all. So for us to have it every other year, that's the very high incidence. And secondly, the spread of this disease is so easy that when it is one part of the country, don't deceive yourself that the other part is safe. Because all the discharges from the animals affected contain the virus. And once those discharges contaminate anything else, grass, vehicles, what, can be carried and introduce the disease hundreds of kilometers away.
Great.
So the safest you can say is when you don't have it. But once you have a focus or two, you are never sure which direction it goes. So
Great.
it's not good for us at all.
Now, I can understand why you're here, because you're Director of Animal Resources. He's a Senior Veterinary Officer. When it comes to the FAO, I'm wondering, how does FAO fit into this picture?
Thanks. Food and Agriculture Organization, as the name says, deals mainly with food production, based on agriculture. So agriculture for us is livestock, crop, fisheries, forestries, so many areas which are linked to the production of food as well as the support to livelihood of people. In a country like Uganda, where most of the people are rural-based, deriving their income or their food from agriculture-related activities, we are extremely concerned about the support to the country which can be provided on one side to increase production and productivity, on the other side to preserve the capacity of producing it, to preserve their assets. And when we specifically talk about livestock, for us, every disease, not only foot and mouth, and this specific case, foot and mouth, has a direct impact on the asset. So people will not be able to keep the same number of animals because some of them will die. Some of them, if not most of them affected, will become not productive, so they will be not capable to produce a good quantity of meat and milk in the future. And definitely this will has a direct impact on people's livelihood as a whole concept, but specifically on food availability at household level, and the food availability which any household potentially can sell in the market. Now, this has an impact directly on food security and nutrition, because if you consider the foot and mouth has an impact on animal survival rate or on an impact on animal production, you will see by the time there is an outbreak of foot and mouth, animals will lose condition, will produce less meat, so there will be less meat available to eat. They will produce immediately less milk, there will be less milk available. If you look at the availability of protein, for example, meat and milk, especially in pastoral areas, are the only source of animal protein. This is why Food and Agriculture Organization is directly try to control the disease together with the minister and try to be sure the diseases get controlled up to a level that does not cause damages which can impact on food security and nutrition. This applies at household level as well as market accessibility. You will see during the discussion one of the biggest negative effects on the foot and mouth spreading is the fact that trying to control the disease we need to limit the movement. Limit the movement of people, animals and products, limit or put down to zero their access to market, which was another secondary effect.
Great. Let me go back to Dr. Chris. When you talk about FMD as a big problem, let me get this correct. Do human beings get direct impact? Can they get affected directly by foot and mouth disease? If I'm raising animals that do have this, can I get affected?
No, foot and mouth disease doesn't affect human beings. At least we've not had cases of human beings suffering from foot and mouth disease. But of course, as I said before, the biggest problem is affecting the welfare of people who depend on the animals and the animals themselves, because I said the animals become very weak, that to the extent that they may not recover fully to their potential. And I did not mention to you that this disease has 7 different types. We call it foot and mouth disease. It appears as if it's one disease, but we have 7 different types of foot and mouth disease virus. So even if this time you can suffer from one type of the disease, after a short time you get another one, and eventually you find it's like a vicious cycle. So we are looking at how do I alleviate the impacts of this disease on food for people, employment, socio-economic welfare, and so many other factors.
Great. And does it spread quickly, Dr. Kauta?
Does spread quite fast, because...
In what ways, first of all?
Through, as I said, the secretions from the body.
That is one.
Now, these secretions contaminate other surfaces and materials that are carried also, and they cause more spread.
Secretions like one?
Urine, milk, feces, dung, saliva, all those are full of virus.
Great.
So now, take an example of a lorry carrying cattle with the virus, and the cattle urinate on the grass, which is normally put there in the lorry to cushion. And then when they are offloaded, that lorry is again used to carry another load of animals. There, all of them get affected because that stuff is, and that causes lots of transfers of the virus. The cow dung which goes dropping as the lorries, all those are sources of the virus. So it doesn't therefore surprise that all of a sudden an area that you have not seen a sick animal has a case starting, because that one comes in. There is also, under certain conditions, aerial spray, where animals can be infected from a few kilometers away from the affected animals, and it has been proved that it can go by some mass of air that carries the virus. So that is another way. But the main thing is contact through watering points, on pastures, on vehicles and all that. Even the veterinarians who attend to cases, and the moment you know as a vet that you have attended foot and mouth disease, you are advised not to attend to other animals for a certain period of time, because you will become a carrier, carrying a virus to another animal. So that's the discipline the veterinarians are supposed to have. And that's why it's not advisable to think that when a vet says, I'm not coming to attend to your animals, is being hopeless. He probably is observing that principle, that I've been touching the FMD animals, I don't want to infect your farm.
Great. So, what kind of animals, let me go to Massimo, what kind of animals are affected? Just cattle or other types of animals as well?
Cattle, sheep and goats, pigs, which are the most relevant animals. Definitely not donkeys, not horses, not camels, but all the animals who represent the majority of the animals who are kept at household level or farm level for profit. The damage are different, and in local conditions with the local breeds, definitely the mortality is quite low. What is the biggest damage is the fact that a number of young animals, after the disease, they do recover from the lesions, but not completely, and some of them remain unproductive for a long time, especially cattle, also sheep and goats. In case of pigs, which are becoming more and more important in household economy in the last few years, in case of pigs, when there are two factors affecting concerning pigs which are important for foot and mouth, the mortality in piglets, in young pigs, is extremely high. So people breeding pigs for commercial purpose or even for household consumption purpose, they can be having their pigs completely wiped out. And the second point is what Dr. Kauta was mentioning before.
Now you just hold on to that thought, because we've got to take a break. When we come back, we'll be winding up, but also telling you why is this a big problem in this country. Stay with us, we'll be back. Welcome back. I'm Gawa Tegule, and tonight I'm talking to Mr. Massimo from the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization. I'm talking to Dr. Kauta from Ministry of Agriculture, and I'm also talking to Dr. Chris Ayabazwe, also from Ministry of Agriculture and FAO at the same time. And we're discussing something we don't usually do here. Foot and mouth disease. What the heck is that? But what our argument is that in the city, you may not realize what is going on, but it is small things like this that explain a lot of the economic conditions that we experience here in the city. And I would like to draw the linkages, Dr. Chris. If I'm a young man in the city, I'm 18, 19, 20, I eat fish and chips or chips and chicken, whatever it is. I mean, my life is really about the city. And you talked to me about foot and mouth disease. What has that got to do with me in the city here?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, foot and mouth disease, much as it may affect cattle, it has serious socio-economic impacts on the country and the human beings there. Our meat cannot fetch as much money as expected. 1 kilo of meat here costs about 10,000 Uganda shillings, but at a global scale, we would expect at least 100,000 shillings. So,
Meaning what?
meaning
Price goes up or it goes
the
down?
price goes tremendous, is so low. You cannot export your meat and milk and other products like hides and skins and get as much money as expected. So it has created a vicious cycle of poverty. Locally, the markets are closed whenever there is foot and mouth disease. There is no movement of animals, live animals, and animal products into, through, or outside the affected zone. So as a consequence, most people become very poor. They don't get money for school fees, money for medical bills. You cannot wed, you cannot get pay bride price. Those people, I mean, as a traditional way, you can't have gifts whenever you get a spouse. So there are very many serious impacts, and as a result, there is insecurity. You don't get food. The animals become less productive. You cannot get income. You become destitute. So we did a recent survey on foot and mouth disease in Karamoja, and we found the 2014 epidemic had a cost implication of about 40 billion within just a short time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me go to Dr. Kauta. You control animal resources in this country, literally. And when it comes to times like this where there's difficulty because of disease outbreak, does this impact in any way, does it contribute in any way to things like inflation?
Well, first of all, the response to outbreaks means that we are channeling a lot of money from the intended, what would be the other purposes to controlling livestock diseases. For example, if we imported about just 1 million doses of this foot and mouth disease, that would vaccine, that translates to close to $2 million. And that's a lot of money. And because when you vaccinate, the immunity is not forever. It means you have to keep repeating practically annually if you want to keep animals free. That's a big cost regularly being put into the control of the disease. And therefore, there is a very big negative impact. If you want to export your meat and you are competing on the market where the other people are not suffering from foot and mouth disease and you are suffering from the problem, first, there is discrimination against your meat because you are likely to cause them problems. Secondly, it costs you more to bring up the amount of meat you want because there is slow growth, there is using vaccines, there is what. So in the end, the country has economic disadvantage when dealing with these diseases, and they are best really avoided. Yeah.
Great. And when talk about other countries, Massimo, what would you talk to us about your experience? I mean, you're not from this country. Back home, where you come from in Europe, what is the experience with foot and mouth disease?
Europe, the disease is, Europe is considered free from the disease for a number of years. They've been putting in place control measures which made the disease disappearing after a while. There were, many years ago, there were sort of blanket vaccination programs where animals were vaccinated systematically, up to the point where they there was an understanding the disease had already disappeared. So they stopped vaccinating, and they kept on observing the animals. Observing the animals with the you control, the disease does not come up. Now the policy decision has been at that time, many years ago, in Europe, was different from the one applied by the African countries, in the sense that as soon as an outbreak will come up, the veterinary authority will come to the outbreak, will stamp out all the animals, will destroy all the animals, putting down the probability down to zero of spreading the disease further. This has been quite a strategy for disease control is quite on the extreme, extremely costly because that was associated to a compensation scheme, which is definitely and is very much related to their economy, that type of economy. We just need to remember what happened more than 20 years ago in UK with damage caused by foot and mouth. So the way to control disease, to eliminate the disease from the UK territory, was to do a systematic stamping out with a very dramatic...
Killing all the affected animals.
Killing all the animals who were infected and guarantee that the animals which were suspected to be infected could be in a way controlled for not having other outbreak. Other system, of course, this was combined with movement control, movement monitoring. It is extremely important to understand that not only to survey animals, but to be sure that animals moving from one area to the other area, they move when they are properly safe. They are healthy and they carry a very limited risk of transmitting the disease. This is one of the many components of disease control which are still difficult to apply to the African continent for the reasons we know.
Great. Now, one of the people in this country who is most interested, I think it's hard to find anybody more interested in cattle than this man, is the president of this country, President Yoweri Museveni. And every time he talks about with pride, by the way, with pride he does talk about it, his cattle, you see him smiling and everything, and he says, I'm a cattle keeper. And when things like this are happening in the country, you ask yourself, where is the president in all this? A question I want to put to Dr. Chris. Is the president in the know about this, is interested, is he following up? Because this one, he has a personal stake in it.
Yeah, thank you. Certainly the president being a farmer, he must be interested in this kind of approach of coming up with a strategy that can eventually eradicate foot and mouth disease, just like we did for rinderpest some years back. So, of course, why should the president and other farmers be interested? We are looking at making farming more attractive. The farmer should actually would talk of farming as a business. Most people, we've had cases of telephone farmers, people, all the time, not being fully in charge of their enterprises. And you have heard of all these programs, NADS, NUSAF, CALIP, and name them, trying to boost the production of farmers. And as a country, and with all the assistance of different partners, FAO and others, there are lots of developments taking place. We are setting up regional laboratories, national laboratories. We are setting up all these programs so we believe it's one way of setting our strategies, bringing people on board, aligning efforts and looking at the future, saying, by 2019, why not reduce the impact of this disease maybe by up to 50% of the problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let me go to Dr. Kauta. What kind of interventions are we looking at as a country in the long term?
Yes, we have to be able to monitor the diseases situation everywhere in the country. That is what we call the surveillance. Surveillance for the disease, build the capacity to detect the disease anywhere it is and report and be able to respond.
Do we have that capacity as we speak now?
Yes, we have a good surveillance program, but we still need some more equipment and infrastructure to help us, because surveillance infrastructure now extends up to laboratories. When you get a sample, where do you take it before you confirm what the problem is? That is the lab. So now the lab is part of surveillance infrastructure.
How do you work out surveillance in people like the Karamojong, who are constantly on the move?
Yes, we have people who are resident in the various areas, particularly community animal health workers. And by linking up with them, we can get samples and get the samples taken to. For example, in Kotido, we have what we now regard as the regional veterinary lab. It has been well equipped, and we are able to pick samples from those areas and take to the lab. And then we can also transfer them to Entebbe, when we will need more advanced diagnostics to be done. So it's being done with the help of community animal health workers and some other stuff. And it is interesting now that we are getting vets who want to go to work in Karamoja. Originally, it was like forcing people to go there. But a number of vets are simply saying, I'm going to work in Karamoja. The security has improved. And they are there working with NGOs. So we think that we are on the right path. We are going to get this done very well in the near future.
And as Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, are you impressed with the interventions that government of Uganda is putting in place? Are we up to international standard in terms of handling this crisis?
The system in place, the understanding, the knowledge, the know-hows are definitely in place, and we have been particularly impressed by the last round vaccination we did for foot and mouth in Karamoja, which was supported by the DFAD, the UK Department for International Aid, and there was a full collaboration between FAO, MAIF, and between also with a lot of involvement from the local authorities with the use of veterinarians, paravets, and also community health workers. The system is in place. There is a lack of infrastructure. There is still a lack of equipment. There is a lack of the infrastructure on the territory which will allow for a better implementation of vaccination. On the other side, for better disease and animal movement control.
We talk about infrastructure. What are we talking about here? What kind of infrastructure?
Checkpoints, still a good network of laboratory, good capacity of mobilization of sample taking. Also, we have been working on it, but still a lot of work needs to be done on the cold chain. We cannot think of doing a serious vaccination campaign at a very effective if you don't have the capacity of pre-position the vaccine even in the more remote area. You cannot think of transporting vaccine for hundreds of kilometers. We have been distributing fridges with solar panel fridges in some cases, not to have the problem of using too much fuel to run them. So these checkpoints, the possibility also having infrastructure which are supporting the livestock market, as well as surveillance, as well as control and vaccination and certification. For example, the water network, an expansion of the water network in Karamoja will always help animals to get to drink along the way to the market to get better condition, and by the time they concentrate along the watering point, veterinarians can go there, take sample, survey, interview the pastoralists, maybe make provision for vaccination. All this combination intervention has to be put in place at the same time, and infrastructure is just a component of it to help the animal health system in remote areas of Karamoja as well as in other areas.
And briefly, in 10 seconds, tell me, are you impressed with government commitment, or do you feel government is committed towards this?
Definitely.
In a few words.
Definitely impressed, and the level of the collaboration and commitment we had even in Kampala central level, and in the field is impressive, definitely. The problem, there are some structural difficulties in remote areas, and one of the biggest things we should remember that we are dealing with people with high level of mobility. When it's not raining, people move around looking for water and for grass, and it's difficult to reach them, very difficult.
Very difficult to reach them. Well, we'll hear more about this after this break. Stay with us, we'll be back. Welcome Welcome back. I'm Gawa Tegule, and tonight we're talking about foot and mouth disease as a problem in this country, and we're asking, is government doing enough to control this? Are we equal to the task? How do we compare in relation to other countries in other parts of the world that are facing the same problem? And how does this affect you and I? How does the economy get impacted by instances of diseases like foot and mouth disease? If something breaks out in Karamoja, how do you here in Kampala feel the impact? All this and more as you join us, or if you like, as you stay with us in the show. And I'm talking to Dr. Chris from the Ministry of Agriculture and FAO. I'm talking to Dr. Kauta from Ministry of Agriculture. I'm talking to Mr. Massimo from FAO. And we're having a good time here. I should be welcoming you to join us in a minute, or in about 5 or 6 minutes. Phone calls live here in the studio. Let me go to Dr. Kauta. Is the ordinary Ugandan aware of the problem of foot and mouth disease, or do they just stop at reading about it in primary school in the science class?
Yes, the people who are keeping the animals who periodically get this problem, like the high-risk areas we talk about, those are the areas of Isingiro, the cattle corridor, Karamoja. They are aware. They have had the condition, they have seen it, they know the consequences, and they don't want to have it. In fact, some farmers are known to be trying to run away with their cattle to another area when they see that in the neighboring village there are cases, because they know how bad it is.
But isn't there cause? Isn't there? Isn't it important for people to generally be aware of foot and mouth disease as a problem?
I was getting to that. These people are very aware, and we try to make other people in other areas aware of the condition. But sometimes people think that that problem is somewhere else, and they think it doesn't get there. They say, oh, the cattle in such a place are sick, not knowing that it's only a few hours and theirs also get sick. But it is true that the farming systems are such that animals, in places where animals are few and tethered, they are kept on the ropes, the disease can hardly spread because they don't mix so much. Right. So there are areas in the country that have never seen foot and mouth disease. While these areas with the pastoralists moving, with large herds sharing water points, sharing pastures, is quite common, and they are aware. Okay. So it's good for everybody to know about it. Yeah.
Right, and let me go to you, Dr. Chris. In terms of long-term strategic interventions, what is government having up its sleeve?
Thank you. Yeah, the government of Uganda realizes that there are challenges, of course, with the high-level investment in this sector. Of course, we are looking at risk-based strategy. This is the document we are developing, whereby we can control the disease at hot spots. There are districts like Isingiro where the disease occurs quite often. So why not vaccinate the disease at those areas and along the cattle corridors, and then also invest in animal movement control, invest in laboratories, having a coordination mechanism between the center and the districts, because there are all sorts of political issues, lack of professionalism, unregulated animal movement, and a lot of lack of knowledge in some areas. So we are looking at places like Kabarore district, Uganda district. You'll find the disease has spent over 30 years not occurring there. So we are looking at what unique advantages we can take so that we extend the areas, the districts which are not affected, for the betterment of the country. And the investment, we are talking of infrastructure, the animal checkpoints, we are talking of laws, legislation has to be applied. Recently, the Animal Disease Act was updated. So it's a whole complex of things, but we believe people need to know and people need to play part. If you go to Chorhura, farmers play a bigger role in containing this disease. Whenever there is an outbreak, they know the impact of the disease, and they actively participate in its control. They themselves guard against the movement of livestock products, and other infectious materials.
Great. In a couple of minutes, we shall be opening the phone line, so it means you can call in and speak to us and let your voice be heard on this very critical matter. Talking about cattle, the truth is they affect our livelihood as human beings on a day-to-day basis in ways you never thought were possible or practicable. So the phone lines will be open in a couple of minutes, and you can call in and speak to us on this. But let me go back to Massimo. You've had the interventions that government is suggesting. As an expert in these matters, do you think we're on top of our game, or is there room for improvement and in what areas?
No, definitely we're on top, and the strategy is well thought, well articulated, is in line with the strategy of neighboring countries. We need to remember very well that the situation of foot and mouth in Uganda is also linked to the situation of foot and mouth in other neighboring countries. Cattle and people are crossing the border not on a seasonal basis for a number of different reasons. So the potential and the risk for disease spreading is within the country and also across the border with other countries. So the strategy is well aligned with the regional strategy and with the global pathway for foot and mouth control and eradication. There are two...
Just hold the line. I have somebody waiting on the line. Hello, are you there? Oh, I think we just lost him. But just finish your point, Massimo.
Two small points I would like to make, which is important to remember to people. People tend to do the vaccination once, twice. So when the disease does not appear for 6 months or 1 year, they just tend to relax. Say the disease will no longer come. Now we are free, we are safe. Unfortunately, foot and mouth can come back massively and quickly, coming from other animals because of the intense movement. The other point is still need to further investigation in Uganda is the role of wildlife as a reservoir for the disease. So as Chrysostom said before, buffaloes can be infected, kudus can be infected, other antelopes can be infected. They can host the virus within their population, and by the time they get in contact with cattle, spreading the disease back again. So on the role of wildlife in this country, some further investigation and study needs to be done if we want to proceed on an effective control. Thank you.
Okay, caller on the line. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, Bwana.
This on TV.
You're live on air.
Yes, I'm watching. I'm calling from Bali. I'm Steven from Bali.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you for the program. I wish you guys could be a bit localized. I have about 10 animals, but this morning I saw about 5 trucks heading towards the border, Tororo, Busia or Malawa. How safe are we here in Mbali? I wish those guys, epidemiology guys, could tell us which districts right now are infected by FMD. Thank you.
Great. I think that's a critical question. Which districts are the most severely affected? And if you have animals crisscrossing the country, is anybody safe? Chris, you want to respond to that?
Yeah.
Briefly.
Thank you. As Director said, we have this year we have had 28 districts affected, and the disease has been in many districts.
Okay, just hold on there. Let me take this caller. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, lady.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you? Speak up.
I'm fine.
Right.
Yeah, there's a program on
You are live on air. Talk to us.
How can we vaccinate?
How can we vaccinate what?
How can vaccinate the program?
Okay, you got that question? I think she's asking about vaccination. How possible is it? How do you vaccinate animals against foot and mouth disease? Thank you. We get your question. We do appreciate your indulgence. Thank you very much. You want to complete your point?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, of course, there are many districts, and he recommended localized control, which is exactly what we are targeting. We are looking at the hotspots. In Mbale, of course, in Mbale, Bulambuli, Bukedea, Kwen, Kapchorwa, Boko, all those areas are, they are
they affected?
We have had incursions in Mbale. We have had a little bit in Bukwa some time back, but not this time around. So, yeah, in Amoria, no, not Amoria, Bukedea, around Bukedea, there are suspected cases, but all that can be said is that there is a list of districts. Our control, all the districts that have been affected, they have been given vaccines. The disease has now been brought down within intervention of Food and Agriculture Organization, the Republic of Uganda.
Okay.
Yeah, we've brought the disease to come, but what we are looking for is strategic control. The vaccine should be available before the disease.
Okay, another call on the line. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, Buana.
How are you?
We're great. Talk to us.
Am I live on air?
You're live on air. Proceed.
Okay, I was finding out if Nakasongola is free from foot and mouth disease, Nakasongola district.
Great, thank you. That's an easy one. Is Nakasongola free or is it in the red?
Yeah, Nakasongola has been affected, but the quarantine, most of that is official. I think the person asking, some of that information is private to the director and the commissioner livestock, commissioner animal health. They are the ones to declare freedom of the disease for each.
Would you like to do that, Dr. Kauta?
Yes, there is an explanation for every disease.
Is Nakasongola free or is it not?
Not yet declared free, but the disease is controlled.
Okay.
There is what we call carrier status. So when an area is affected, there is a period during which a carrier status holds on, and we therefore keep a quarantine in place. When that period is over, usually between 4 and 6 months, we then declare the place free. Just like they did for Ebola, that after so many days of no case, you can say we are free.
Okay.
Now we have the carrier status in FMD, and we hold on that. So we shall make an official declaration from the information we are getting from the field.
Okay, I'll take another caller. Hello. Hello.
I'm saying this is the kind of fever. Hello?
Please move away from your TV set. You're giving us feedback.
I'm calling all again from Alepton district.
From?
Alepton district.
Alepton. Yeah, talk to us.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard.
Actually, are we not also going to be affected?
Are you not what?
Are we not going to be affected, sir?
In Alepton?
Yeah, Alepton.
Okay, thank you. You want to respond to that?
What I can say is that a lot of effort has been put in controlling the disease. We are vaccinating even when the cases have practically died down. So we believe that we are on top of things and the district should not get affected.
Okay, another call out the line. Hello. Yes, Buana.
Hello, Steve.
So, Gambotia.
Yes, I'm calling from Kavari.
Talk to us. Welcome aboard.
Yes, Emmanuel from Kavari. The problem is these veterinary officers make financial capital out of this disease. Is it allowed for them to request for some payment when they are vaccinating these animals? is the government aware, or is it paying them salary? Why do they ask for money?
Okay, thank you. Respond to that,
Yes.
Kauta?
Yes. Quite often we have procured the vaccine and we have sent the vaccine to the districts free of charge. There are costs of administering the vaccine that have been left pure at the local authorities. And some local authorities have charged a fee to cater for the vaccination program. So, yes, we have been giving vaccines free to the districts. And any charges are being done at district level.
So are they lawful or are they not? I think that was his point. Are they lawful?
Well,
Or is it corruption?
a local government is a government. And if they are given the vaccine free and they find a way of using the vaccine with their local people, I don't see what is unlawful about that.
Okay, the last caller, hello. The last caller. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, Bwana.
Yes. Honorable Dr. Kapo Mandiwa, can I talk to Dr. Kauta?
You're live on air. Just speak. We hear you.
Dr. Kauta, this is your colleague, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Now, I'm seeing you quite clear. You have talked of Quen, Bukwa, and Kapchorwa. And normally, yeah. And honestly, there has been of recent of outbreak in the Bukwa. And the young man that did took the vessel has been traveling to Kenya, then whatsoever, and then he has charged on his passport whatsoever. But on the disease control FMD, traditionally, even when we were in school those days, you would drive the animals to the stream very early in the morning, just to cool their and then in the evening, so that you just have the control the issue. And then thereafter, the government comes in later on. And we used to do it as the small children, up to when we went to the university together, or they came back and you came to the university.
What is your point, my brother?
Sorry?
What is your point? Our time is almost up.
My point is, now you are concentrating on the Karamoja alone, and yet is an outbreak all over the country.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just revert to my panel very, very briefly. You want to respond to that?
No, it's not true that we are concentrating on Karamoja alone. We have the vaccine distribution list, which of course we don't have here. But vaccinations have been taking place right from the border with Tanzania, covering a number of places. We are vaccinated in Kiboga, Nakaseke, Nakasongola, and all through Karamoja. So it is not true that we are concentrating on
Karamoja alone. Okay, briefly, Dr. Chris, the young lady raised a question about vaccination. How possible is it? In 30 seconds, can you respond?
Thank you. Vaccination is one of the most important tools we have to use to contain this disease. And we recommend at least 2 vaccinations per year for dairy farms, but for pastoralists, even if at worst, it should be once a year.
Okay.
So we are looking at vaccination, given that they are, yeah, we are looking so much at these vaccines being applied carefully with the help of the veterinarians we have, and also we are looking at farmers being proactive to start buying the vaccine eventually, so that the disease, you don't wait for government, you support government and encourage private sector.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Massimo, your last word in 20 seconds.
As I said before, the strategy comes at the right time, is well integrated with the with the right strategy at regional level. What is important that as the strategy is very comprehensive, we need the participation of all the actors on the ground, civil society, government, pastoralists, traders. Anyone needs to participate to be aware of the efforts required by everyone to control this disease.
Thank you, Mr. Marcelo. And thank you, Dr. Carter.
Thanks very much.
And of course, Dr. Chris, pleasure to have you on board, and thank you for being with us. And thank you, folks out there, for making time to be with us this late. From me, Gawai Tegule, and all of us here at NTV, it's have a good night. God bless you. Till we meet again, stay with us. Bye for now.